We're here, standing on the shore of a new place. Does the air smell different here? I think it smells different here.
It doesn't smell different to me, but I will say, those volcanoes are quite something. It's way more impressive than the one we have back home.
Yeah, those are some incredible volcanoes. Let's just hope they don't erupt.
Rin, Lycos, and Masita had just finished pulling their canoe onto the shore when a large Voldo woman moved up to them, wearing one of the ceremonial servant headdresses. She was taller than even Lycos, with slender shoulders, for a Voldo tribesperson anyway. The woman wore a solid light blue dress.
Welcome to the Voldo Islands. My name is Pao. I'm one of the servants of the Voyage who will make sure you all have everything you need. How was the first part of your voyage?
Oh, it was great. Well, not great. There was this big storm and it scattered everyone.
Oh, we saw that. Some Voyagers have already arrived, but many others are still out there. Anyway, allow me to direct you to where you need to go. Please follow the markers to Voyage village. There you will get your first tattoo. The send-off ceremony will take place in 3 days.
Thank you for your help. Will we also be able to stock up on rations?
You don't have to worry about that, little brother. The servants of the Voyage will make sure you're stocked when you leave. The only thing you have to worry about is relaxing and preparing for the next leg of the journey.
Rin, Lycos, and Masita followed the colorful markers until they arrived at another large collection of tents. Just like before, a line of servants stood at the entrance to Voyagers' village and checked people in. Rin and the others were welcomed, directed to their tent, and then were asked to wait for the tattoo artists to come.
So, what do you think the second tattoo is going to be like?
It's going to be a band of spear points wrapping around our arms. Our father went on the voyage once, so we saw it often.
Too bad he didn't finish.
Hey, stop being so critical of our father. This experience isn't for everyone. There are more people who don't risk the journey than those who do. At least he came back when he knew this wasn't for him. Some people never returned.
I know, and you're right. It's just that, well, he gave up. What if somewhere deep in me I have that same lack of courage?
Masita was beside her and she placed a hand on Rin's arm.
That's why we're here! To find out what is within you! It's like the preserve of the Voyage set. This experience isn't just about sailing the ocean. It's about finding yourself and the strengths you have inside. If you trust yourself, then you'll discover who you're meant to be.
You're only focusing on one aspect of Father's life and considering him a failure. Yes, he didn't finish the voyage, but there are countless other things he tackled and overcame. And another thing, you're always griping about how nervous you are to have Father's fear. You might not have that fear, but you might also not have Grandma's boldness either. Stop assuming you inherited it from her, because you didn't.
A savage burn erupted on the most sensitive parts of her soul. Tears welled in her eyes, and yet Lycos' hard glare was unyielding. However, at the same moment, Rin noticed the trio of wide-eyed tattoo artists standing in the doorway to the tent.
Is now a good time for getting poked?
Yes, please! Welcome, to our tent!
The tattoo artists moved inside, and no one wanted to break the oppressive silence. Lycos scowled, and he sat down in front of one of the tattoo artists. Likewise, Rin and Masita took their places as well. Time seemed to melt away, and the pain of getting the new tattoo faded into the backdrop of consciousness. Rin closed her eyes and she let her mind replay all the time she had spent with her father. It wasn't that she didn't love him. It was just, well, he had given up on going on the voyage. Her father never really brought up the voyage, and Rin never pried, After all, it had been before either Lycos or Rin were born. In fact, their grandmother warned them early on not to ask their father about his experience. Most of Rin's memories with her father were filled with smiles and good interactions. So why did she have this bitterness in her? Maybe it was because of the voyage. Maybe it was because going on the voyage was her greatest dream. Her heart twisted and sharp pains shot up and down her spine and stomach. Not physical ones, but phantom pains. Going on this journey was her greatest aspiration. Hers, not her father's. Tears welled in her eyes again, but she closed her eyelids. Still, they trailed down her cheeks. All this time, she had carried this judgmental sense of superiority over her father. She claimed she would never balk in the face of adventure, and she would carry on her grandma's legacy. Her father wasn't stupid, and he must have known how she viewed him based on his failed experience. And yet he never stopped her from study, or training, or preparing for application to the voyage. Yes, he was nervous and overprotective, but he never forcibly stopped her. What a fool she had been.
All finished? You're done, little sister.
Rin opened her eyes and gazed down at her arm. Just below the black band near her wrist was another pattern of diamonds representing spear points flowing into one another across her skin. The front tips overlapped with the back tips, forming an unbroken circle. A thin black line marked the edge of the second tattoo. A sudden burst of warmth flared in her, and she looked up at Masita and Lycos. Her brother wasn't in the tent. Masita sat cross-legged in front of her tattoo artist, but she was already done too.
Where's Lycos?
He finished and needed some alone time. Are you okay?
The tattoo artist packed up their tools and then left the tent, uninterested in the conversation, surely.
Yeah, I'm okay, I guess. Our tattoos look great.
He's right, you know. Your brother, I mean. Rin, you know I love you, but you really shouldn't be so hard on your father. Had he kept going on the voyage, he would have died, and neither of you would have been born.
You don't know that for sure.
Actually, I do know. But more importantly, he was right about your grandma too. You don't have your grandma's courage.
A great pain started to quiver in Rin's chest, and the tears started to form again. Masita crawled over and held Rin's hands in her own.
You have your own courage that's unique to you. Each person has their own destiny to follow, and their own way of getting to the very end. Your grandma lived a wild and exciting life. Your father leads one dedicated to family and community. Both of these lives are wonderful, and neither are inferior to the other. And your story is still being created by your own open actions and will. You've always wanted to be a great navigator, and now you're on the route to doing it. I am so proud of you.
Masita.
You're trying so hard to be like your grandma and not like your father, but they're both great because they were true to themselves. How about you focus on being you? I'm going to support you as best I can. That's what I'm here for. Being a great navigator would be really neat, but I'm more interested in being a great best friend.
You really are a great best friend.
Rin leaned in and clutched Masita close to her, so close that their bodies were practically merging together. She pulled back a moment later.
Should I find Lycos and apologize?
Maybe. Give him some time and space?
That actually sounds like a great idea. You're right about what you said too. I think I want to take a walk by myself to think. Can we meet up later for dinner?
Sure thing.
Rin took a deep breath and then left the tent. Masita sighed as her best friend walked out of the tent. Rin was such a sweet girl, and someone who would achieve the mantle of Great Navigator. She sighed and then exited the tent. This particular island in the Voldo 3 was not unknown to her. Masita knew exactly where they were, and who lived here. Her heart writhed a little as she took silent steps down the path between the tents. Rin had gone to the right, which was just fine, as Masita's destination was to the left, perhaps a few miles left. Masita walked along the beach, all the while looking for specific things in particular. A broad smile creased her face when she saw it. A conch shell had washed up on shore. She scooped it up in her hands and made sure it was empty. It was in wonderful condition, too, which would certainly help. She walked along the worn paths until she came to one of the many villages on the current island. Voldo Islanders strolled along the paths, and many of them waved at Masita. More than a few asked if she were a child lost from her parents, which caused her to giggle innocently and play along. Unlike people in the passionate Shenado tribe, people from the Voldo tribe were more relaxed. They often strolled through life with broad smiles and were slow to anger. Eventually, Masita found what she was looking for. A large Voldo male kneeled by a bush, and he had been picking small purple berries and placing them into baskets. Masita skipped up to him.
Hey there! Picking acai berries, huh? I love acai berries.
The large man turned around and then peered at Masita, who was eye level with him. A small blush flourished on the man's cheeks.
Oh, you know about the dyeberries? That is surprising. I didn't think anyone off of the Voldo Islands knew about them. They only grow here.
Oh yeah, I know all about acai berries. I see you have 2 baskets there. Can I ask a favor? If I give you this really cool conch shell, can I trade you for one of those baskets?
You want a whole basket? That is a lot of dyeberries for such a pretty girl like ya.
Aw, thank you. But it's not really for me. I'm actually paying a visit to an old friend, and she loves acai berries. It would really mean a lot to trade for them.
Oh, wow. That is the sweetest thing I've heard all day. Yes, I can trade with ya.
Masita traded the conch shell, took the basket, and then politely declined an invitation to stargaze with the young man later that night. She wandered to the far end of the village, with a specific destination in mind. Masita stopped at a particular hut, where an old woman stood before a loom under a canopy. At the moment, the woman was weaving a blanket with an intricate design on the front. The old woman had silver hair that fell to her back, which was slightly hunched. She scowled at the blanket and the design that she had sewn into the center. A pair of dolphins swam in circles with one another, and there was an open space in the center of their dance. The woman wore a faded yellow dress, her favorite dress. When compared to Masita, the woman was about 3 inches taller and more muscular even in her advanced age.
That, looks like 2 dolphins trying to bite each other's tails.
The woman shifted around and gazed hard at Masita with a pair of light brown eyes. Deep wrinkles covered her face, and the nostrils of her hawkish nose flared up a little.
What did you say? Who are ya, little one? Did ya lose your parents?
Oh no, I'm not a child. I'm one of the Voyagers from the Shenado Islands. That's a beautiful blanket. The 2 on the front look like a pair of dolphins trying to bite one another's tails.
The old woman, whose name was Fina, narrowed her eyes, and then she smiled widely.
Ya know what? My best friend used to say that same thing. She would always make fun of my love of dolphins. Well, not make fun, but she said that the dolphin was my spirit animal.
Dolphins are great spirit animals for sure. A dieberry?
Perhaps Fina didn't notice them at first, but now that she did, her eyes widened.
I love dieberries. My daughter says I shouldn't have them because they are too sweet. It must have been 10 years since I last had them.
Masita walked over and gestured the bowl to her.
Oh, come on. You only live once. After all, you love them, right?
You remind me so much of my best friend. Her name was Adisam. I miss her so much. My name is Fina, by the way. What is yours, little Shanado?
Fina scooped up some acai berries and then slipped a couple into her mouth. Tears welled in Masita's eyes, but she blinked them away before Fina could see.
Oh, my name is Masita.
What is wrong? You seem upset.
Oh, I'm fine. I just got in a little while ago from the voyage, and so far it's really hard.
Voyages are meant to be hard. I never wanted to go on it, but I had friends who did. There are more ways to find yourself than that. But for those who do, you will find great things about yourself. Don't give up, okay? I believe in ya, Masita.
So, you mentioned your friend? Whatever happened to her? You mentioned you missed her?
Yes, I do, every day. You see, one day we were talking about our future, and about what it would be like to grow old together. My friend never liked to talk about that, and, well, we argued that day. It was so foolish, and I was in a mood, so I pressed it when I should have backed off. And I drove my friend off.
No. You didn't.
No, I did. You see, she stormed off, and then that was it. I never saw her again. I never got the chance to say I was sorry, or that I loved her like a sister.
Masita couldn't help it now. Tears fell from her chin onto the sand at her feet.
Oh no, now I made Yaa cry too. I'm so sorry.
No. You didn't. It's a sad story. You said your friend hated talking about the future, right? Well, maybe she hated the idea of growing old, because that meant an end was coming to the friendship.
That would make sense. My friend Adisam always liked to live in the here and now. I think the future scared her.
I think she may have feared losing you, because she loved you like a sister. Maybe growing old reminded her about how finite lives really are.
Isn't that the truth? I wish I could have told her all this. I wish she could have known.
She knows. I believe she knew exactly how you felt. And I bet she'd want you to know that she loves you. That you were one of the best things to ever happen to her. And that you changed her from the person she was.
Do you really think so? I hope so. I hope I can see her one day in the next life, whatever it may be.
I hope so too. Can I have a hug? I could be a stand-in for Adisam.
Fina gently took the bowl from Masita, set it to the side, and then scooped up Masita in a warm embrace.
I love ya, Adisam. Wherever you are, my heart is with you.
I love you too.
Fina placed Masita back down, and then she smiled down at her.
Thank you so much. That made me feel so much better.
That's great. I'm so glad. Hey, I have to go, but how about you enjoy all the adai berries?
Are you sure? That is so kind.
Of course. Goodbye, Fina. It was great seeing you.
Goodbye, Masida. Don't give up. Ya will find where you're meant to be and who you're meant to become.
Masida walked away from Fina's hut, but gave it one last look from the top of a hill. Fina was smiling and waving.
Goodbye, my friend. I wish I could go with you. I wish I could see you again in what lies beyond. 34 days. Please, let our next 34 days be filled with happiness.
Masida turned around and walked back in the direction of Voyagers' village.
Not everyone can do this, or wants to do this. When will you understand?
Lycos walked away from the tent, his tattoo still freshly pressed into his skin. His arm throbbed, and yet he didn't mind it much. It was something that he now shared with his father. If he stopped now... But he couldn't. Rin wouldn't, and so he had to do this. Lycos wandered out of Voyagers' village and into one of the actual Voldo villages. The huts were just like the ones back on the Shenandoah Islands, only larger in dimension. Warm smiles greeted him. Everyone was taller than he was, aside from the children. According to the legends, the god Voldo blessed these people with immense fortitude and size, and it obviously passed from generation to generation. The island itself was beautiful, and it was new. Seeing it was quite interesting for sure, and he was enchanted by the exotic location. Still, Lycos never wanted this. Despite that, the universe had other plans. He stopped when he came upon an older man working with smooth-looking black rock.
Is that obsidian?
The man stopped and then glanced up at Lycos. The craftsman was broad-shouldered, with a bushy mustache and a scar curling up from his chin, just under his right eye.
Oh, hey there. Yes, this is obsidian. I make obsidian tools. Have you ever seen this stuff before?
No, I've only heard stories about it.
The craftsman stood up and then picked up one of the obsidian daggers he had made earlier. It was shiny, black, and had a light brown leather strap wrapped around its handle. He gestured it to Lycos, who gently took it in his hand.
I make them for the chieftains to hand out to worthy people. Obsidian is pretty rare, all things considered, so having one is very special.
Lycos turned the dagger over in his hands before giving it back to the craftsman. Suddenly, a large hand fell on Lycos' shoulder. He looked up. A slight chill slithered in his stomach.
Hey, little Shanado. I am so glad you made it. Are you ready for a test of toughness?
Test of toughness? Do you think that's fair? I mean, we Voldo are the toughest of all.
Well, this little brother said he was taller than me, and so I accepted his challenge. It's all in good fun. It won't be anything dangerous. I was thinking about a game. Would you be up for playing a game, little Shanado?
Sure. What kind of game?
We have a game here on the islands. It's called Obiatusu. It takes real fortitude to play.
Oh, I love Obiatusu. I even have a ball. Tell you both what. I will give the winner this obsidian dagger as a prize. How about that?
Wow, you mean I have a chance to win that? That would be an incredible story to tell my kids one day.
You have a tiny chance, but anything is possible. The rules are simple, little Shanado. We stand opposite from one another, and we have to try to kick the ball past one another. You can't use any part of your body to block the ball, except for your hands or arms. Shoulders are okay though. First one to 5 points wins.
Other Voldo tribesmen assisted in marking the game field with sticks, and it was essentially a large square, perhaps 50 feet long. There were 2 smaller boxes where Lycos and Utamaka were supposed to stand, and upon looking, it was clear that Lycos was at the disadvantage. Still, it was not like either of them could change their sizes. The ball was a large melon-sized cloth object filled with bunched-up blankets, cloth, and other such things. It was fairly soft to kick and light as well. The game started off pretty well, with Lycos blocking all of Utamaka's kicks. He had to shift half a foot to one side or the other to block the ball, while Utamaka merely leaned. She kicked it particularly hard, and the ball smacked Lycos right in the face. It didn't hurt much, but it did surprise him and stung a little, and he stumbled back. More than a few people of the Voldo tribe gathered around at the display, and they cheered Lycos on when he blocked it with his face. Utamaka managed to score 2 goals after that, and Lycos could already feel his body starting to protest. This was an incredible workout, and his lungs heaved a little. His legs and torso groaned too. Lycos smiled, for it was like a successful day fishing with his friends and fellow tribes members. Lycos scored 3 goals, one right after another, by kicking the ball through Utamaka's legs.
That dagger's going to be mine!
You haven't won yet, little Shanado. Now that I'm all warmed up, I can play for real!
And that was the beginning of the end. Utamaka started kicking harder, and she started kneeling down to block the ball with her thighs or crotch. Lycos caught the ball in the stomach, and it nearly stole his breath. His kick was affected, and Utamaka easily blocked it. She sent forth another hard kick, and the ball zipped past Lycos' ear. Her 4th goal was earned several minutes after that. Sweat glistened down both of their bodies, and Lycos' everything ached savagely. He smiled, which earned him a smirk from the larger Voldo woman.
I'm happy to see that you're still in the game, little Shanado. Much respect.
This is a fun game, but I'm going to win!
Show me then.
Lycos gained another goal when the ball bounced off of her shoulder and landed behind her. Back and forth, he and Utamaka kicked the ball. However, as much as he tried, the last bits of his strength was slipping away. Utamaka's power lessened, but only slightly. Her last goal bounced off of his face.
And the winner is Utamaka!
The crowd cheered, and the craftsman handed Utamaka the dagger. Lycos gently clapped along, and his arms were the only parts of him that weren't worn out. The large woman approached him and gestured to the dagger in her hands.
That was a great game, Lycos of the Shanado. I will tell my kids about this great match, and how I won this dagger. Thank you. You aren't as tough as me, but you are really tough. Worthy of being a great navigator.
Really? You really think I'm tough enough?
Of course. We will both make it back to the sacred island of new beginnings. You had better make it there with me.
I promise I'll be there. You had better be there too.
A slender woman by Voldo tribe standards took the stage, and she gifted the crowd of Voyagers with a small, subtle smile. The woman was very tall, and she carried the sort of elegance one might expect from a chieftain. She wore a cream-colored dress that fell just under her knee, and she carried a spear with an obsidian spearhead. Her long salt and pepper hair was tied into a single ponytail, going down her back. A small degree of warmth danced in Rin's chest, and she moistened her lips, waiting to hear what the chieftain would say.
On the way here, y'all encountered a great storm that challenged ya, your skills, and the trust between yourselves and your canoe mates. Out there on the ocean and in the pursuit of your destiny, you will encounter many storms. Some will be worse than others. And some may cause you to lose things that you value intensely. No matter how powerful the storms are, you'll have the fortitude inside you to overcome them. You must trust in your own strengths and push forward. The storms in your lives will end, and the seas will calm. When it does, you will be able to sail on to the next storm and the next victory.
The chieftain held up her arm and showed off her completed Great Voyager tattoo.
The spear points on the second tattoo represent your great fortitude. True fortitude doesn't mean that you don't get scared or nervous, or that you don't have doubts. True fortitude means that you have so much great determination to see your goal fulfilled that you can't and won't ever give up. You keep rising when the waves of the world knock you on your back. You keep getting to a stand when the winds blow upon you with Otala's full might. You keep going on, even when everything in your mind says give up. Fortitude comes from the heart, and each of you have heart.
Lycos' arm wrapped around Rin's shoulder and pulled her in for a side hug of sorts. He still watched the chief, and so Rin simply smiled at him and returned her attention too. Perhaps not to be outdone, Mesita held Rin's other hand.
Go forth and know that you have the blessing of the Voldo Islands. Keep that fortitude in your hearts and minds, and you will become great navigators.
The chief waved her hand, and the Voyagers all gave out a great cheer. Many others started moving toward their canoes. But like on the first island, Mesita, Rin, and Lycos all hung back. Many of the other groups had the same idea.
1 down, 4 more to go.
Well, technically, 5 more to go since we have to go back to the sacred island of New Beginnings.
Well, technically we have to get 5 more. I like to pretend I know everything. Duh! Fine. What's the next island anyway?
It's Aoela Island. Lycos, I'm sorry about being so judgmental on Father for not finishing.
Oh, it's whatever. No worries. Let's not dwell on that. Instead, let's pray for clear skies, smooth sailing, and a swift trip to Aoela Island.
Let's race to the canoe. Last one has to do first watch tonight.
Mesita pivoted and sprinted down the path.
Hey! No fair! Wait up!
Rin watched her brother chase after her best friend, and then she trailed along.